Hello and welcome back to my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a long arm quilter. And here on my channel, I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. And today we are doing a quilt room tour. So if you remember, in February of 2024, I bought a second long arm and had to move things around so that I could have both long arms in one room. So I moved downstairs and we moved our bedroom upstairs. So this room I'm going to show you today, it's right off of our living room, and that has advantages and disadvantages, but it's a much bigger room and I can have both long arms and plenty of room to work. So come on in and I'll show you around. So here is the long arm that you never get to see normally because I'm sitting there and usually facing towards the other one. So this is the newest long arm that I got. This is a Handy Quilter Amara 20-inch throat space, just like my other one. When I bought a second long arm, I wanted to do both of them the same machine pretty much. There have been some updates, but because I already knew the computer system, already understood how to load quilts on it and everything, I really wanted to keep that learning curve as small as possible. So I went with the same long arm. So both of my machines are on 12-foot tables, and these are this one is the Studio 3 frame. That one's a little different, but they work pretty much the same, both from Handy Quilter. So they fit nicely in this room. I've got a nice amount of space in between the two that I can work back and forth. I did decide to put them so all I have to do is turn from one straight around to the other. I have seen other people set up where they have both machines facing the same way, but I really wanted to be able to get to both machines. So I guess we'll do the wall behind the machine. We'll just work around the room. So first over here, some of these things you're going to remember from where I had my sewing room upstairs. This is one of those canvas measuring tape things, and I hang this up and just put cards and notes, things that I receive in the mail, and this is just a lot of fun stuff. This encourages me all the time when I receive notes from clients, thank you cards, special gifts. I like to keep those notes and remind me of the special people out there that are sending me quilts. So back here behind the door, this is just a hang-up place. A lot of times I'll hang quilts that I've already finished. Right now these are a couple that are waiting to be done, but as I pull them off the long arm, trim them down, take pictures, and then a lot of times I'll hang them here and just wait until I'm ready to film several at one time. So from my room here, I look out over our front porch, and which is really nice. I have 3 huge windows. We're in an old house, so I love the big windows, and I can see what's going on around the house. I can see if somebody pulls in the driveway. I really like being downstairs. I'm close enough to the family. If things are going on, can just pop in here and pop back out to the kitchen if I need to. But you see the 3 large windows, those overlook our porch and out to the road that travels in front of our house. Behind this, on this wall behind here, I just have some of my fun stuff. There are hang-ups there, but I don't typically hang a lot of stuff back there just because this long arm, I don't want something to get caught on the long arm as it's going past there, and plus it's a little tedious to go all the way behind the machine and to hang some things up there. So sometimes I'll hang a quilt or 2 up there if it's waiting to be filmed, but a lot of times I don't have anything back there just because I don't want anything to get caught on the long arm. So I guess I'll show you underneath here. I do try to utilize the space that's underneath my long arms. And sorry about that, Daniel ran into my cart that was in the middle. This is my shipping, all of my shipping supplies. So all the boxes that I keep, all different sizes, depending on the type of how many quilts I'm sending back at once. So I have small all the way up to large. And then I just keep my tape, my all kinds of stuff down here. I have my scale in here. I always send back, when I package up quilts, I always put them inside plastic before I mail them back. So this is just has all of my supplies. A lot of times I will fold a quilt here in my sewing room, but then I'll take it out into the living room to actually box it up, tape everything up. So that's why everything's in one box, so I can just pick that box up and go. But that's basically all that's underneath here. I have some files and things. Down here, I mentioned a lot of times how I tuck batting in behind a quilt if I am rotating it, and I just keep a big basket of scraps of batting back here. So actually, I'll show you. I have a piece stuck behind here. When I was lining up this, when I was rotating this quilt, I did need to stick a piece of batting behind here to get my row to line up. And so I just keep a whole basket of extras down here on the floor and pull them out as I need them. So a great way to use up scraps of batting. And once they get kind of raggedy, then I'll throw them away. But this is also something that you usually don't get to see, because this is where I sit at to do all my filming. So I do keep my lights up all the time. I try to keep it as easy as possible to be able to film a video. So I keep my lights up here, keep them plugged in, just so that when I'm ready to start, I can hang the quilts over the long arm and I can start right away. So this desk, I don't even know what this is, just an old school desk that we have. I like to use old things, and so love the wooden desk and the wooden chair, and not too much. I keep my queue up on my desk all the time. You'll hear me talk about my queue, and this is where I list quilts as they come in, the date I receive them, the date I long arm them, the day I film them, the day it goes on YouTube, everything like that. So this is gold right here to keep a hold of that. And just a calendar. This is my TOA gauge. I've talked about my TOA gauge before, how I check my bobbins, and I keep this on my desk all the time. Sometimes I'll tuck it in the drawer if I'm filming or something, but it's basically on the desk all the time, because I check a bobbin every time I put a new bobbin in. I always check it. So, and sometimes in between even. So here's the second long arm, and you see this one all the time. Same length of table, same machine. And so yeah, the bookcases behind, sometimes you see those in videos. You usually see over to the right, but over to the left, I have mentioned recently how I like to keep pre-cut fabrics just as decorations. You'll notice some small charm packs up there, some yardage of a quilt kit that I bought that I haven't finished yet, but I love the colors, and so I like to decorate with those. Old quilts, a couple of those are vintage quilts. One of them was my very first quilt. I have my Lori Holt So Happy Place quilt folded up there as well. Just different types of books and things that I like to keep on my shelf, just things that I need to reference, or just pretty stuff. So I guess I'll show you underneath this long arm as well. Not too much under here. This long arm, so all my batting's hanging down. I do have, I forget what this is called, where this will hold your batting up off the floor. Those are just to keep a couple of my scraps. And so usually when I'm working on a quilt, I'll just have it draped down, but when I finish for the night, I will tuck it into that cradle so that it's not on the floor. This is just a couple small things of batting. This one right here is Quilter's Dream, but it's the Request, which is their thinnest loft of batting, and so I do keep a small amount of that and just keep it on this bar underneath here. And this other large one you see is my wool, and again, those are my least used battings, and so that's why they're underneath the long arm. I don't have to pull them out too often to use them, so I just keep them tucked away. And then you'll see on the floor here, this is my large cutting mat. So when I'm trimming up a quilt, after I've taken it on off the long arm and I want to trim it up for putting, for sending it back or for putting binding on, I'll pull this out, and then I have my large rulers. And I actually lay it out here on the floor and trim up my quilts. So I really like having the hardwood floor underneath it. That's why I'm able to trim up on the floor, because it is a hard floor. On carpet, I think that would be much easier, and I would need to do it on a tabletop or something. But having the wood floor gives me a nice solid surface, and I can trim up quilts right there on the floor. All right. I've talked about my cart before. I keep this right in the middle of the room so that I can It's handy between both of the machines. This just keeps things on the top are things that I use every day. So I have my pins, my tape measure, my red snappers. I have brushes for cleaning, scissors for trimming threads, just everything you need. New needles, my oil, a seam ripper, just all the things that you would need all the time. I have a flashlight. I use that all the time too to see underneath the quilts. Then underneath I have jars of bobbins and just some other things on the bottom. Just things that I use. Some are shipping supplies, some of them are bobbin related, but the bottom two shelves are things I use a little less often. The top one is things that I use all the time. One of the things I forgot to show you on my two machines are the drawers. And I remember last time I did a sewing room tour, this was one of my most asked questions. Where do you keep your thread? So let me unloosen these so you can see. I do, both of my machines have a drawer, and I know many people put them on the back of the machine. Because of the spacing of my room, I felt it was better to put my drawers on the front. So I know it is underneath the quilt when it's loaded, but for me it's not a huge problem. So in this drawer here, I keep all of my neutral threads. These are the threads that I use almost all the time. So my cream, my white, my light gray, my medium gray, my dark gray, all of those. And then I have boxes of my pre-wound bobbins under there as well. I do have the bobbins on the cart, but I'm finding it's just a little easier having the boxes opened right there, and I can just pull out the ones that I want. And then the other things in there are all things having to do with my Pro Stitcher or things that came from Handy Quilter. I just like to keep those in one drawer. Now let me show you the drawer on the other machine. Now I know this one is tucked away down here. This is where it was when it was upstairs, and so I did not change it when I moved it down here. But basically in this drawer is just colored thread. I don't know how well you can see in there, but these are colors of thread that I'm not normally using. So I recently used Little Boy Blue on a baby quilt. I've used this gold, but these are all colors that I don't tend to use that often. So it's not a problem for me to have them tucked away in this corner. I only use them occasionally anyway, but I do want to have them down here when I have a customer who wants some colored thread. So that's how I keep all of my thread. I use Omni thread on the cones, and then the pre-wound bobbins by Filtech is usually what I use. Let me come over here. Another bookcase. Well, you can see in between the bookcases another big window, and this is where I keep my rolls of batting. So I have king rolls in the 80/20 and the cotton, and I have queen rolls in both the 80/20 and the cotton. I keep both on hand. I have white. I also have the cream or the natural color, and just depending on size of quilt, depends on which one I cut from. If a customer requests white, then I do have to cut those from king rolls, but it just keeps me from having to have too many different kinds of batting on hand. But I keep the 80/20 and the cotton on hand all the time, and that's in the select loft that Quilter's Dream carries. This shelf, just some of my fun stuff. Some just decorative things. Old sewing machine, old windows, old quilts, fabric, old cross stitch, just things that make me happy is what I keep on the shelf. And then here in the corner, I do have my Minky stored. These are the 3 colors of Minky that I have on hand now, or that I keep on in stock. I just got this new platinum in the gray. And so if you're needing Minky for the back of your quilts, I am starting to stock some of those because they are a lot of fun to use. You've seen my closet before. Before I put this on, put my doors on. But this houses quilts that are just about ready to go on the long arm usually, or they're ones that I received them in the mail and I haven't had a chance to carry them upstairs, and I'll show you that in just a little bit in the second part of our sewing room tour. So this is where I keep quilts that are ready, just about ready to go on the long arm and ready for me to work on. And then we're back around to the last wall. Again, you see this one quite often in my videos. This just has a lot of fun stuff that I like, just my wall hanging, some old kid irons, and this is wide backings that I have in stock for clients that want to purchase some wide backings from me. I have a little bit of variety there. And I keep just a little bit of batting on here. I was trying out a different size. I think this is 60-inch wide, and so I had gotten a couple of these smaller things of batting to see how often I would use that instead of having to cut big ones all the time. So that's why they're here as well. So that's a little bit around my quilting room. I call this my Longarm Room, but if you know me, you know I also like to do personal sewing, and that is upstairs. So now I'm going to take you upstairs and show you where I do my personal sewing. All right, here we are upstairs in our home. Now, when I told you that I moved my Longarm downstairs, this is not the room that the Longarm was in upstairs. That's down the hallway. What this room was our girls', we called it a dressing room. There's no heat or air in this room. It's just another little cubby, maybe 6 by 6, 8 by 8. I really don't know the size of it, but it's been used for many things over the years. The last probably 10-15 years we used it as a dressing room for the 3 girls. Being in an old house, we don't have a lot of closets, and so the girls, being 3, young 20s, they needed place for their clothing. So we've had it many different ways, but that's what this room was used for many years. This closet here, my husband and sons built several years ago for the girls for their clothes. This actually is over the, it's like the dead space over the stairwell. And so this was a great use of the space once we realized this cavity was empty. So I'll open this up and let you see in here. So I mentioned downstairs that all the quilts were downstairs that were getting ready to be quilted. These are quilts that are in the queue, but are a little bit farther down the line. So there are 2 rows of hangers here, and so these are all numbered, and I'll go into more detail about my numbering system and my queue and how I keep track of all those and when I do my question and answer video next week. But this is where these are all quilts ready to be quilted. 2 rows of them, and so they are stored up here. And so this was really nice. Once the girls got married and moved out, I was able to just use that whole space for my quilting. And then, all right, I think we'll just come on in here and I'll just go around the room a little bit. It's not super big in here. Again, a lot of these things you may remember from my sewing room tour last time. But the room I was in before, I had my Longarm and I had all my personal sewing. So I, in some ways, feel like I've got my own little cozy nook up here now. It's really fun. So I guess we'll just start over on this wall. Again, you'll notice a lot of these things. You'll remember a lot of these things, I guess. These shelves are actually old drawers from a vintage sewing machine. So the sewing tables, and you can find those at flea markets and everything all the time. And so I just turned these on the side. These brackets just came from Amazon, and they've got a little lip on the edge of them, so it holds the shelf on there. I really like those. So it holds that on there. And let's see, I love to decorate with fabric, and so these are some jelly rolls. I have a little angel that I found one time. This is an iron base. They would have used to set their iron on when it was hot. Just an iron base. I have a couple of Lori Holt, her pretty trim that she has, some buttons, different things, notes from my kids. I always like to keep those. This is an old sifter. Whoops, I'm gonna knock my clock off. This is an old sifter. You can see the bottom of it, but I use it just as a cup. This keeps my pens in it. These are the large pens that I use to mark stacks of fabric when I'm cutting a project. Love to use old pieces. I love words, so I love to use old pieces. These are old boggle tile, or they were cubes, I guess, and I use those to create words. I keep all of my rulers over here on the right hand side, and I don't know, I found this little shelf at some point. I really don't even remember where, but it has like a slanted little base here, and so my rulers fit really nicely in here, and able to keep them up off the table, but very accessible when I'm doing my cutting. So this is my cutting table. I had this in the other room as well, so you may remember this. The base of it is just a couple of bookcases from I believe they were from Better Homes and Gardens, which is sold at Walmart. So just a couple of those, the 6 drawer cubes. And I have one here on the front and I have one here on the side. And then I think there was a post or something back in that back corner that keeps it all level. Then underneath, this is a big piece of plywood that is covered with ironing fabric and then cotton fabric on top of that. So if I want to use it as a large ironing space, I can. But most often I keep my cutting mat on here. I just received this not too long ago. This is a Lori Holt mat that is the 36 by 24. It's double-sided, but I tend to like the lighter, the not so bright, is why I have it flipped this direction. So on the back here, I have one of the, what does she call those? The bee easel things. I don't remember the name of it. And if I'm working on a project, I'll keep them up here so you can see my hometown holiday sampler. The schedule is up there, some barn quilts. Again, I like to decorate with old things, so I have an old iron. This is where I keep my smaller rulers. And so the ones in front are the ones that I'm going to be using all the time. So these are my 6-inch, my 5-inch, my binding ruler that I use. And here is my rotary cutter. So these are all the smaller ones I keep, but the ones that I use most often are the ones that are right in front. Just some decorations and things. Oh, I was going to show my little bowl. This is where I put, as I'm trimming up cutting blocks and things, I just keep this enamel bowl on my cutting table and throw all my scraps in there, and then I can throw it in the trash. My trash is across the room, not that far away, but this just is really nice to throw things, and it's pretty too. So the bookcase underneath, I do have my scraps under here, so I haven't been as diligent about keeping these organized as I used to be, but they were marked at, I think the marking has come off. I haven't been very diligent in keeping this. But one basket is 2 inches. It should be 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3.5 inches, but I'm not sure that they're even in the right order right now. I keep books on here as well. And this, yeah, it's actually, let me pull this out so you can see. It goes deeper behind, and I can't remember. Oh, I remember now. Okay, so the shelf on the front here is a 6-cubed one. Behind there is a 3-cubed one that I have facing this way. So this is almost like 2 deep. And then on the other side, I'll show you in a minute, that 3 cubby one is facing out so that I can use that for storage as well. But I have books in the very back that I don't use as often, but I still want to be able to get to. And the same thing down there. And then I keep my scraps in front of it. I love to use these locker baskets. They came from Hobby Lobby, and I just love the look of the locker baskets. So all my books, and then down in this very bottom cubby, I have some of my smaller design boards. They stack up really nicely. They fit really nicely in that little spot. Over here underneath is where I keep bolts of fabric that I have. Most of them are not full bolts, but say I'm at the store and I finish off, when you're buying, a couple yards, and they just give you the rest of the bolt, and I'll leave those on there. I do have some whites that I keep in stock, white on whites, because you use those a lot in quilts, and those may be full bolts, but I keep all of my bolts of fabric down under there. Some of them I've bought for backings, others I'm just using in a project or something. My box on the floor is the new Lori Holt Autumn line, waiting for a quilt to be made from that. I love that. Let me move my chair out of the way, and I'll show you this other side of the bookcase. Again, these are things that I don't get to as often. That's why they're tucked away down here in the corner. But more bookcase. I love to be able to use the empty space underneath my cutting table for magazines and for other books. And then I have this bolt. This is from the Hometown Holiday Sampler, and actually it didn't come on a bolt. There's another thing of fabric underneath here, but there was so much fabric that was needed for that the background print that I just rolled it onto a bolt so that I could keep it usable and accessible. All right, I'll move this out of the way. So moving around the room, this is then my ironing station. This is an old, again, an old sewing cabinet. There's no sewing machine in it anymore, but I love to use vintage pieces of furniture, or especially sewing related vintage furniture. And so I use this for my cutting table. I made my cutting mat. No. I've been saying cutting table. This is my ironing table. I made this ironing table topper. It's just a thin piece of plywood, and I put some ironing fabric underneath and then covered it with a little bit more of the decorator weight fabric from Lori Holt, and then that makes it where I'm able to iron on it. Then my iron sits here, my clappers. I have this little basket just to put orphan blocks or things that I'm cutting. You'll notice some of these were from my Joy Filled. And when I was making half square triangles, if they were a larger half square triangle and then you're trimming off those extras, or like easy corner triangles, and then I would do a second seam and sew it and just throw them in the basket. I'll use them for something someday. But this is a new addition. I've had this chalkboard for quite a while, but it sat on an easel, and I just didn't have room for the easel, so I took it off of the easel and I hung it up here. I got this idea from one of my Quilt Circle members, Lisa. She has a chalkboard in her sewing room where she keeps track of all her projects, and so I'm going to plan on doing that for 2025. Just write in chalk up here, and this is just an enamel tray. It's magnetic, so I like to keep things on it. I haven't quite figured out how I want to decorate this yet. This is kind of new up here. So in the corner, just some crates down there with other projects up on top. These are all projects that come in. Most of these are wool projects, so things that I've picked up, some fall things that I want to work on, and I just keep them. This is a wire basket. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I just find them and I like to use them. Just like to decorate with fun stuff. The old spinning thread things, spools. I have flatter up here if I want to use it to make my blocks flatter. An old ironing board up here. In my other sewing room, I use that as a shelf, and up here I didn't have quite the room to do that, so I just have decorated with it. So just fun stuff around here. Underneath my sewing table here, I keep my project boxes. These are projects that are in some state of completion, and so I do mark on the outside edge of them what the project is inside, so when I'm ready to start working on it again. Sometimes it's just fabric that I've bought for the project and I may not have even started it. Others I've started and either abandoned for some reason. My sewing space right here, I do have it right next to my ironing spot so that I can just move from one to the other back and forth. Right now my Bernina is in the shop. It should be back anytime, but I just bought a cheap $100 machine from Walmart to use right now while my other one's in the shop, and it's been working fine. It's one of those, it wouldn't last a long time, but it works for a great in-between while waiting on my other one to get fixed. So it's been fun. This desk, oh my, I don't know, we've had it for ages. The girls have used it, I've used it. We replaced the knobs with old door handles, and love that. Just keep my supplies, needles, rotary cutters, fabric, pens, pencils, all of that kind of stuff. Just what you would normally keep in a desk drawer. And then you'll see my Joy Filled project waiting to be finished here. In this room up here, I am on the second floor, so I'm looking out over the yard outside, and I love the view. The birds come and sit right there in the tree in the summertime, and so it's a good view. See the farm fields around me. All right, to the left of my desk, I have more project boxes down here on the floor. Those are more the ones that I'm working on right now. My temperature quilt, my Joy Filled quilt, Meadowlark I finished, and just some of the others that I use more often. And my peaceful baskets, this is all the fabrics for that I'm working on each month, and I'm just keeping that in a locker basket. All right, over here in the corner I have layered 2 bookcases, and again, we've had these bookcases forever. I don't even know where they came from, but on top I have some old lunch trays, and if I have a drink up here, I set it in the drink holder of my old lunch trays. Do you remember using those as a kid in school? I do. Other fabrics, I love, again, words, so I found some old blocks and spelled the word quilt. I found this old pin cushion, the rocking chair pin cushion with the threads and the scissors in the back. I found that at an antique store. Thought that was really cute. So I just have a tomato pin cushion on top. This is another enamel pan that I find at antique stores. This one I was working on some string quilts, and so I have cut all my, I pulled out all of my fabrics that were 1.5 inches. You can do string quilts at different lengths, but all of my ones that were 1.5, and I was putting them together by color. So I just stored that in this one right here. A couple of these are empty, a couple of these are my linen for my temperature quilt. And I've talked before how I keep quilt patterns in binders, and so this is a binder that I have with quilt patterns that I printed out and keep stored here. So a lot of times when I'm showing them to you on YouTube, and then I will bring them up here and store them in a binder, so if I ever want to use them again, I can have reference to them here. Then I have cross stitch ones, other binders over there. Down below is more fabric storage. These are just different cuts of things that I've picked up. Most of these are larger pieces, probably 2 to 3 yards of fabric. Not enough that they were on a bolt, but 2 or 3 yards that I would use for a quilt backing or something like that. This piece of furniture was, I believe it was an old dresser. I can't remember. I know there was doors or something on the bottom, and we took those off, and we used this in another room for a long time, and I thought it would be a nice addition up here. So here up on top, I'll just show you on top, I have, the girls actually use this hook thing for their coats and things, and so I just left it, and this is where I have all of my cross-stitch thread hanging. These are ones that are not in project bags, and so if I'm working on a new project, I'll come and see if I have the colors that I need here. When I'm finished with a project, then I'll bring the colors back here and I'll put them on the rings that they go on. So DMCs, those are Gentle Arts, Week Dye Works, and then Classic Color Works. Let me see. Some other baskets up here. These have smaller patterns. More of the patterns that you'll see hanging up at a quilt store in the little plastic things. I like to keep those there. Another project I was waiting to work on, the Woven Star. I'm collecting the 30s Playtime charm packs to use in those. This right here is how I keep track of my quilting projects. So this is the Lori Holt planner, and I need to be more diligent in doing it, but I have done some this year. So this is my quilt number 1 is my temperature quilt. You've seen this many times, but I'm writing in here when I started it, the linens I'm using, extra supplies that I've done, who's running the quilt along, and then I keep all of the papers for it in here. And then, so each project that I'm working on is listed in here. This is the pressed flowers one I did earlier this year. This was my Somerville quilt. So a great way to keep track of patterns and to keep progress written down, and I really like that. But I keep it right here on this table so that when I'm up here working, I can just open it up and jot down my notes and have it ready right there. This old bread box we found when we were cleaning out the kitchen when the kids were stripping the wallpaper off the kitchen. So I decided to keep this, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Right now I just have some small quilt blocks. I found these flannel board numbers at an antique store. I love flannel board too. So these stick to my design wall, and I don't really have a design wall, but they stick to a little flannel board that I have. So I don't know what I'll do with that, but I thought I would just set it there. Okay, let me show you inside this drawer. This is all fat quarters. Mostly fat quarters are smaller, and I've done this by color. I showed you recently that these cards came in a Sew Sampler box, and they showed you how to wrap these smaller pieces, fat quarters or smaller, on these. I may switch over the whole drawer to that. I haven't decided, but right now it's pretty organized by color, and I know that these are mostly smaller pieces, like I said, fat quarter size. So if I'm pulling projects or pulling fabrics for a project, I can come here if I'm needing about that size of fabric. So I liked being able to tuck that all in one drawer. Down here on the bottom is all of my Lori Holt things. So all of my Lori Holt books, fabrics that I have, and all of this is her fabrics. I have my new Prairie Home book that just came, and all Lori Holt fabrics. And then this is my Hometown Holiday. That's the fabric for that. And then the fabric for Quilty Fun. Those are two projects that I'm currently working on. Especially Quilty Fun, I'll pull from these fabrics because that is a scrappy one. I didn't buy a kit or anything for that one. The Hometown Holiday is actually fabrics, but once I'm used all the fabrics for that quilt, then I will put them in these other buckets according to color. And I guess I can pull that out and show you. Yeah, maybe. My Lori, whoops, oh shoot. My Lori Holt stash is overfilling my space for it. So this is all my low volumes in Lori Holt, and then this one, I've done them all by color. So when I'm working on Quilty Fun or something like that, I can go through the bins and I can see what color I'm wanting. So this one is greens and blues, and then all of the others there. All right. I'll set that right there. All right, just a little bit more in here. This is all design boards that have projects on them. So here's my Hometown Holiday sampler, the directions for that, and you've seen my blocks. And I just keep them stacked up here on design boards so that they don't get wrinkled or messed up. So as I'm working on them, I keep them stacked here. These were the low volume ones for my Joy Filled that I decided not to use, so I'll use them in something. This is Quilty Fun. This is how much I have done of that. And again, I just like to keep things flat and so that they're not going to get messed up. My temperature quilt. These are the blocks for that. This is the pieces for the temperature quilt. I found that it was a lot easier to keep them laid out on a design board, just marked with the numbers so that I could find the pieces easily. So here's more of my temperature quilt, the blocks for that. There's my pressed flower, or the Peaceful Baskets blocks that I've done so far. And that's just a scrap quilt I was working on. And this is a Corey Yoder pattern that I was working on. Haven't got to that one for a while, but I'll stack these back up. So down here are more design boards. These are the larger, a little bit larger size, and I like tucking those in right there. And then these plastic bins are just full of projects. A lot of times it's the Sew Sampler project that comes. I've tucked it in here, ready to work on, just other notions and things. And then as we're coming back out of the room, this is the flannel board that I was saying that these little pieces fit really nice on. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but they stick perfectly to that. And this is actually a door that goes into an attic cavity. We store a lot of seasonal things back there. But down here I have my cross stitch. These are all cross stitch bags or cross stitch projects. And I recently got this old suitcase, and I'm going to use this to put cross stitch supplies in. So like a place I can hold my pattern or my scissors, and just make it kind of cutesy as people have been doing lately. But I found that at an antique store. It was really fun. All right, so that is my personal sewing space. I do it in here, but I know you're going to ask, where's your fabric? Because there's no fabric in here. So the girls' room is right here down the hallway, and now that they're all married, I moved my fabric into their room. So I'll have you follow me in here, and I'll show you how I store my fabric. Okay. All right, so this was the girls' room when they were growing up. So there were 3 twin beds in here originally. When Holly got married a couple years ago, then her bed was over here, and then Maggie and Emily put in these long shelving units here. They had books, all their personal things on here. So this was a great place for my fabric. Once they were gone and I knew I had this whole unit, I had my fabric in a hallway closet, but it was just a little dark. I liked having it in the closet. I could see everything easily, but it was a little dark, a little dim in that hallway. So I liked moving it in here. I can sit on the floor, pull out fabrics if I want. I do have these on the comic board, I can pull one out. I forget what these are called. The comic board thing, you know, you can put comic books on them to make your comic books stiffer. I use it for my fabric. This yardage is all probably 1 to 3 yards. If it's more than that, then I have, you'll saw either it's on a bolt or it's tucked underneath there. So I like keeping my yardage that way, so I know if I'm working on a project and it says I need, 4 yards of a background fabric, I know I'm not going to find that here. I'm going to find that on the bolts. If I need 2 yards of a color, I know I'm going to find that here because most of these are in that range. If I only need fat quarters, then I know I need to go to my drawer in there because that's where fat quarters. And then if I'm just using a scrappy strips of fabric, then those are in the locker baskets underneath. But I did do this by color, so browns and then more neutrals, blues and greens. These are more specialty canvasy type of fabrics down here. Across the bottom, then reds and blacks and blues across the bottom. I do have a few things up on top I still need to put away, but I like having this nice big long counter space. In this basket I do have reproduction. These are mostly fat quarters. I wanted to keep all of these together. So you'll notice like my reproductions I have all together, my Lori Holt I have all together, but basically everything else is mixed in. Those are really the two kinds of fabrics that I like to keep separate. Everything else is pretty much mixed together and I can pull out as it's needed. So this room basically is all I do is use it for my fabric storage. We do have a bed in here and a pack and play for the babies when they come to stay, but other than that I just store my fabric in here and have a nice little quiet spot to audition fabrics in. So in the closet over here I can show you that. This is extra batting that I have. I do piece batting for my own projects because I have so much batting left over. So I do have this grouped by size and by type of batting. And then as I need to piece battings together for my own projects, then I can come pull from that. So I like having that storage there now too. So I kind of spread out everywhere once the girls were gone. So that is a tour of both my Longarm room and my personal sewing room. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below or send me an email and I'll try to answer anything. I'll try to link some of the things that I've shown, some of the specialty things that I've shown. If I can find links for them, I'll try to include that down below as well. But thank you for joining me today and I hope you enjoyed the tour.